So this is sort of a part two. I don't know if everybody was here for the part one we did last year, but this is sort of a part two. And just to recap part one, right? We learned mechanics of negotiation together. We talked about it, part one last year. Preparation. So everybody knows my philosophy, right? Everybody knows my background. And preparation is everything. You know, if you prepare for a negotiation, you're going to be much better off than somebody who doesn't. Now, most people don't prepare. They just wing it. It's like getting on a call. They don't create an agenda. They don't prepare. Preparation is key, and it's very important. Active listening. So we've talked before about active listening. You know, you want to be listening to get information. You want to be listening to get that good stuff. You can push it back in their face later on, okay, if you're listening. But so many people think good negotiation is a lot of talking. It's not. It's a lot of listening, but it's very specific talking. Knowing your best alternative to a negotiated agreement or your plan B, you always have to have, plan B. So many times clients will say to me, that's weak, I don't even want to consider anything else. This is what I want and this is all I'm going to get. That's a terrible way to negotiate. It's a terrible way to negotiate. You always have to be assessing to figure out. If you think about it, buying a house. So they have these home buying shows on TV, right, where these people, I was watching the most ridiculous one, by the way, where it's like lottery winners buy a house, and these people all win like $1 million lottery, and then the real estate brokers are all over them, and they take them to buy these houses, and they show them 3 different houses. Well, that's what they're doing. They're saying, well, this one works, but this one might be better, and this one might be better. They're looking at all the different options in their plan Bs. And then we talked about 2 tensions, and this is really the critical part. So all of this, everybody knows, and you can pick that up anywhere. But the real art to negotiation are managing tensions, okay? Because that's why you're negotiating. There are tensions. If there was no tension, you wouldn't be negotiating. You go into a grocery store, you pick up a can of peas, it's 99 cents, you decide to buy it. That was a negotiation, but there was no tension there. Okay? You just decided that it was what you wanted to pay for it. Well, we talked about managing the tension between creating and distributing value. And this is where, really creative negotiators will understand how to grow the pie. Okay, well, you want this, I want this, how do we grow the pie and all, come out ahead together? The old saying was win-win, right? Win-win is bullshit. There's no win-win. The new saying is win, not lose, okay? So, win-win is impossible, and it was all cliche, and up at Harvard, when that book NTS came out, it was win-win, win-win, win-win. You can't win-win, all right? But you can win, not lose. It can be a win for me, and the other side cannot lose. And so that's an important tension that you want to manage there. And then managing the tensions between empathy and assertiveness, right? So you have your scale. One side is very soft skills, empathetic. The other side is very hard, assertive. And you manage those. So we talked about all those things before. And if you master these concepts, you can become a good negotiator. Negotiation can be learned. It absolutely can be learned. And if you manage those tensions, you can become a good negotiator. Well, we don't want to just be good negotiators, right? We want to be great negotiators. To be a great negotiator, and it's just like being a great investor. Just like being a great investor. What's the hardest part about investing? Managing the emotions, managing the fear, okay? Managing the risk. Well, that's the same thing with negotiations. Right? You guys all know this. Should I push a little more? Can I get a little more? Or is this whole deal going to fall apart? Right? And that's the emotional tensions that you have to learn to manage in order to be a great negotiator. No different than being a great investor. No different at all, right? And you'll hear the Warren Buffetts of the world and all these people say, you got to just take the emotion out of it. You got to just manage the emotion. Well, that's the same thing with negotiation. And so today we're going to talk about how to manage that emotional tension that exists in every negotiation. And we're not just talking about our own emotions. All right, so, and we're not going to get like all Zen and Svengali here, and we have to meditate and get our emotions in check. It's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is managing your emotions, okay, but also understanding how to control the other side's emotions. And what I mean by that is how to avoid those hot button issues in the context of the negotiation so it doesn't go down a rabbit hole. Because you know once it goes down that rabbit hole, you know you're like, oh shit, here we go again, okay? And we got to go through the whole cycle of problems. And so the key to it is, just like a great investor, learning to manage your own emotions, but also learning how to structure the negotiation that you're having to manage and control the other side's emotions as well. Not letting it become emotional. And there's ways to do that. And it's very, very effective. So let's talk about it. So one thing I want to talk about also is why we negotiate. You know, and what I tell my attorneys all the time, I don't know if they listen to me or not, but I tell them all the time, oh, there's Jeff. Jeff listens, yeah, she does it. Is we're not playing to not lose. We're playing to win. There's a very big difference between playing not to lose and playing to win. Very big difference, right? And if you look at amateur tennis players versus professional tennis players, you can understand it right away. You know, amateur tennis players, and I happen to be one, you know, you're just happy you got it over the net and inbounds, right? You're just happy about that. You're not really placing your shots. Same with golf. You're not really placing your shots. You're just happy to get it over there, and the one who makes the mistake first, you know, loses. Professional tennis players, though, they're playing to win. They're specifically taking every shot and hitting that shot to win the point. Okay, they're not playing defense, they're playing offense. And that's really, when you're negotiating, okay, you have to be of the mindset that you're playing offense. You're playing to win that point. You're not playing not to lose that point. Very important distinction there. So managing risk, right? I love this. You know, this is my own sort of definition of negotiation for me. But managing risk, you know, negotiation is an exercise in obtaining value while managing risk. That's why you negotiate, right? You're trying to obtain as much value as you possibly can and manage the risk that it might fall apart. You might have pushed for too much. It might all go away. And I think that mindset is very important to have when people are negotiating. I don't know that a lot of people have that mindset, you know, but that's the way that I approach it. I say, all right, I'm going to see how much value I can get out of this, and I'm going to manage the risk that it doesn't fall apart. Seems to work. The best definition of risk I came upon is risk means more things can happen and will happen, right? More things can happen than will happen. That's risk. That's a negotiation. You know, more things in the context of that negotiation can happen than are ultimately going to happen. So you got to manage that risk. You know, emotions aren't bad things, right? And they can be positives as well as negatives. You know, emotions can divert attention from substantive issues. Sometimes you have to. Sometimes you have to get yourself out of a bad spot and throw a hissy fit and walk out of the room because you got nothing else to say at that point and it's all a smokescreen. Sometimes you have to do that. You know, emotions can damage or enhance relationships. You know, my younger sister, is a courtroom deputy in family court for the last 20-something years. Has horror stories as to what goes on in family court. But, you know, some of her most profound stories are where couples who just hate each other and are killing themselves, and the judges finally get them to really understand, you know, that they have a child and they need to be protecting that child and taking care of that child, and they finally get it and they'll break down, you know, in tears in the courtroom and really get it and really understand it. And the good judges in family court know how to use emotions. They know how to use emotions to negotiate good settlements. They have to. So it can be a powerful way to do it. You know, they can make it impossible to create a bridge, or you can build rapport. You know, that gap, when there's emotion, that gap is very hard to bridge. Okay? When it's negative emotions. When it's positive emotions, it can very easily build rapport. And emotions can reveal another dimension that can help give context, or can be used to exploit you. You know, there are very skilled negotiators out there that will get people to reveal their emotions, to reveal intimate things about them, and then exploit them. So you got to be very careful with that. So let's talk about tools we can use to manage these things called emotions. Right? The emotional tension that exists can be managed by these 4 things. 1, focus on interests, not positions, and we're going to go over these in detail. Focus on interests, not positions. It's a very, very, very important distinction. We'll talk about that. Build affiliation, respect autonomy, and acknowledge status. Okay. All of these things, if they're not managed correctly, you will step down into one of those rabbit holes, and it will become an emotional-based negotiation rather than based on interests. So number 1, focus on interests. The basic problem in a negotiation doesn't really lie on conflicting positions, and I'll give you an example in a minute. But it's between each side's needs, desires, concerns, and fears. So these are the interests. What do they need? What do they desire? What are their concerns? What are their fears? Those are their interests. The position might very well be, I want you to pay me $5,000. That's the position. But the interests are their needs, desires, concerns, and fears. And so if you stay focused on that in a negotiation, then you can get to that win, not lose. You know, the classic example they use are the two brothers fighting over an orange. They both want an orange, you know, and mother, what does mother do? She cuts the orange in half, and she gives them each a half of the orange, okay? And one of the brothers squeezes the orange juice into a glass and throws the rest of it away, and the other brother peels the rind of the orange off and uses it to make a jelly and throws the pulp away. Okay? So what they did there was a classic mistake of focusing on positions rather than interests. Had the conversation been, well, what is it that you want this orange for? And one brother said, I want to make juice. And the other brother said, I want to make jelly out of the rind. We'd have had win-win, dare I say win-win. We would have had win-win. Instead, what they did is they cut that pie in half simply by focusing on positions rather than interests. And it's really important to understand that nuance. So we're in the middle right now of negotiating a very, very extensive long-term lease, huge capital improvement, and it's a huge project. And I'm enjoying, you know, it's really good when you get people in a room that understand how to negotiate these things rather than just positions, because as we're going through the issues, the question is, well, why do you need that? Once you say, why do you need that? Now you're focused on interests, not just positions. Positions would be, I'm not giving you that. Okay? Instead of saying, well, why do you need that? Well, this is our concern, and this is what we are anticipating, and this is why we feel we need that. Okay, that makes sense. I might not be able to give you this, but I can give you this. Now we're focused on interests. But so many people, particularly lawyers, and you know, all the lawyers in the room, I apologize, but they're just so aggravating to deal with, you know. No, not kidding you, no. Just come on, dude. Let's work it out. You know, but it's really important. So if you are able to control the negotiation and keep it focused on all of the parties' interests rather than positions, that's tool number one to managing emotions. Because once you get into interest, what happens? I'm half Italian, I'm half Irish. The Irish stubborn part comes out, right? There's no way that I'm gonna give in on that point. But if we're talking about interests, if we're talking about, hey, I need this and you need this, let's figure out a way to solve it, we'll work it out all day long. 2, building affiliation. This is really, really, really important. Really important. You know, affinity and affiliation is so powerful and prevalent for all of us. The minute we have a genuine connection with someone else, we're going to give them a better deal. And the minute they have a better connection with us, we're going to get a better deal. Okay? It's just the way it works, and it's going to take a lot of the emotion out of it. It's unbelievable how that happens. But you have to find an honest connection. You know, how's the weather isn't going to do it. You know, in a past life, as a young lawyer, I worked at a law firm, Farrell Fritz, here on Long Island, and one of my mentors, and he really was a great mentor, John Armentano Sr. And he was an old-timer, a founder of the firm, passed away a few years ago. But what he would do, when he would get a litigation matter in, he would call the other lawyer, and he'd say, hey, I see we got this matter together. Why don't we go have dinner and talk about it? That's how he would start out in terms of handling a litigation. Why don't we go have dinner and talk about it? And inevitably, by the end of that dinner, they would have built affiliation at that point. We don't do that anymore, right? We don't do that anymore. We don't tell people, hey, we have this disagreement. Let's sit down, have a meal, see what we can have happen. That always sticks with me. It really is so very important to being able to resolve those tensions that exist in negotiation. You treat your adversary, by adversary it's the person you're negotiating on the other side with, as a colleague. You guys have a problem that you're trying to solve together. That's the way you keep emotion out of negotiation. You know, here I say use we liberally. I try to do that all the time. We need to figure this out. You know, when I'm talking to somebody on the other side, that's what I'm saying. Hey, we need to figure this out. Loop we in as quickly as you can. You know, we need to figure this out. That is a very powerful way to build affiliation. If it's we, then it's not you versus me. It's now we. So I don't, admittedly, take my adversaries out to dinner. I'd probably be 400 pounds at this point if I did. But I will call them up and I'll say exactly that. Hey, I saw this come in. We have a problem that we need to solve. How are we going to do it? You know, should we meet? Should we sit down? What are we going to do to resolve this? Now, a problem when you're a lawyer doing that is sometimes clients feel that's weakness. It's not weakness. Strength. Strength. You know, so many clients say, I don't care what it costs. I just want to kill them. I want to clobber them. So they get the invoice. Then they care what it costs, of course. It's strength. Getting the best deal you can, managing as much risk as possible. That's a great deal. That's what we should all be shooting for. So affiliation is important. You know, to understand the power of affiliation, when I was president of the Alumni Association at Stony Brook, we were broke. You know, we were flat broke. The Alumni Association was a separate 501c3. President of the university Shirley Strom-Kenny, basically told us, I'm not giving you any money, you guys figure it out. And we did. We went to a credit card company, First USA was back then. Oh, Joanne's here. You remember this, right?
I do remember it.
You remember this?
This is a we thing.
This is a we thing. Yep. And we went down to Delaware, we met with First USA, and their affinity credit card program was tremendous, right? And they recognized and realized how powerful affiliation and affinity is. You'd get the Stony Brook logo on a credit card, you'd mail out the application to all the alums, you'd say sign up for this credit card as an alum, you know, and 1% of everything you charge is going to go to the Alumni Association. It was huge, huge, huge business because they understood the power of affinity and affiliation. And so all I can tell you is, you know, today's day and age with LinkedIn and with Facebook and everything else, you know, if you're going to be negotiating with someone about anything, learn as much as you can about them. Learn as much as you can about the real stuff. And try to find ways to have real connections with them. Because that's going to take all of the emotion out of it. We talked about this, meeting in person rather than phone or email. I think that's critical. You guys know that. You know, and talk about things that you care about. Talk about things that are going to put your personality out there, that are going to let the other side get to know you. You know, I started writing a blog called Off the Record, right? And everybody thought I was crazy for doing that. But I'll tell you why I started doing it, is because I want people to know me. I want people to know me. I want people to trust me. You know, in my business, with my clients, I want them to know me. I want them to trust me. But even with my adversaries, they can know me. I'm not, you know, I'm only looking to get the best deal possible. That's all. That's the American way, right? We're just trying to get the best deal possible. I'm not trying to kill somebody. I'm not trying to ruin them, ruin their career. I'm just trying to get the best deal possible. So the more you know about me, you're going to trust me, and now I'm going to be able to push and get to know you better. And now I'm going to be able to build a real affiliation with you. And then we're going to be able to solve the problem, the most value with minimum risk. You got to be careful not to be manipulated, though, right? It's and so this is the problem, is people get very afraid. They get very afraid. They don't want to put themselves out there because they think they're going to be exploited. And I understand that. That's a realistic, you know, concern. You have to be aware of it. But that's, you know, that's you. I can't, you know, that's you and your therapist's issue to discuss. I can't really get into your own head about, you know, your self-confidence issues. But this gets back to preparation. If you're prepared, you're probably not going to get as manipulated as possible. Tool 3, you know, respect autonomy. I put at the bottom of this, we all know this issue, right? This issue is when we say something and the other person says, how dare you? Whatever it is, that means we didn't respect their autonomy. If we just made an assumption, okay? We just made an assumption. And it happens all the time with lawyers. Okay, this is the craziest thing that rubs lawyers the wrong way. Okay, we're going to have a settlement meeting to discuss this. Okay, great. We're doing it at my office. How dare you? Without any discussion, assume we're doing it at your office, right? The hair on the back of your neck goes up at that point. Because that other person didn't respect autonomy. Would have been much better to say, would you prefer to do it at your office or mine? Or it would be even better to say, and it just happened. So I'll tell you, you know, with this lease negotiation that we have going on, the first time we were originally supposed to meet at my office, but then the other attorney had a closing going on and they wanted to be in their office, which I was fine with. Right? I was fine with that, but it was kind of far away. The second meeting, because we had the first meeting there, the second meeting, they just automatically assumed we were going to have it back at their office because we had the first meeting there. at their office. You know? And I started thinking, how dare you? How dare you just make that assumption? But it's really, you guys know it. It sticks in your craw. These are the things that just stick in your craw, and people don't respect autonomy. They don't ask your opinion on these things, or where you would prefer to do things, or how you would prefer to do it. And it really is something that if it's not carefully managed, it's going to be problematic. Fourth tool, status. This is huge. You know, in everybody's world, status is huge. Partners, vice presidents, managing directors, you know. We all know titles are a very thinly sliced sandwich, right? But they matter to people. They really matter to people because everybody wants to feel like a someone. And you know, in my world, in the attorney's world, you know, there are people, they just get crazy where they say, I can't believe they only sent an associate. I'm a partner and they only sent an associate to court. And, you know, that gets back to not respecting autonomy, right? If you're not acknowledging that associate for sort of who and what they are. And status and acknowledgement of status is really very critical, and it's also very simple. Right? Again, in the world of LinkedIn, Facebook, and all these other things, you can find something that person has achieved from a status perspective. You can find something, and if you want to build affiliation with that person and really manage emotional tensions with them, the easiest thing to do is say, hey, I saw that you won this award for being the greatest whatever. That's wonderful. I'm so happy that I'm going to be negotiating against someone who has achieved that. This is going to be really interesting. We are going to have a great time doing this. We're going to create a lot of value together. A totally different conversation that is than saying, oh, I'm stuck with an associate? Negotiating with an associate? This is crazy. It doesn't really work that way. And honestly, you know, it shouldn't work that way. Everybody has value. You know, everybody has a status that they're proud of for something. Our job, if we're going to be great negotiators, and we want to build affiliation, and we want to manage emotional tensions, okay, our job is to find something from a status perspective that we can compliment that person on right away, so we can build affiliation with them. That really will manage the tensions right away. You know? You don't want to compete over status. And that's the associate, partner, you know, vice president, non-vice president sort of thing. You don't want to compete, you know, over status. It doesn't work that way. And, you know, social status we talked about, there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of great things. You know, so we have, every year we have in our office, we give out an Attorney of the Year award and we give out an Employee of the Year award. And we have the plaques hanging in our lobby. And there was somebody in the lobby, this is probably 2 weeks ago, somebody in the lobby, and our receptionist, although I can't call her receptionist, she's crazy. Client coordinator or whatever she is now. No, can't say receptionist. But she's great. Michelle, she's great. And I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, she, you know, she won the award, and there was her name on the plaque. And this guy was hanging out in the lobby, and he's, you know, reading the plaques, and he turned to her and he said, wow, I see you won Employee of the Year. How fantastic an accomplishment that is. And I was thinking to myself, bing, he's acknowledging status right at that point, right? He's probably trying to sell us something, but that's fine. But he was skilled, you know? And I was like, how nice is that? Because everybody sitting in that little lobby area, those plaques are right there. I wonder how few people actually congratulate her on that when it's, you know, when it's right there. Courtesy is paramount, right? So everybody says, oh yes, I'm, you know, courteous to the janitor as I am to the President of the United States, and everybody knows that's the way it's supposed to be. It doesn't happen that way, folks. It really doesn't happen that way, and it's a shame, because a little bit of courtesy gets you such a long way. You know, in our building, our superintendent, his name is Victor. He's a great guy, little guy. Great guy, though. And, you know, we let him know. On Fridays, we have bagels. Victor, come in, have some bagels, have coffee. Anytime you want coffee, we give him a nice Christmas bonus. Guess what? Any single time there's a problem in our space, guess who's there fixing it for us? Victor, right? We didn't have to. You know, he's just the building super. And a lot of times people overlook him. It's funny. Our whole office knows his name. There was another office in that building. They didn't even know what his name was. You know, the guy. Oh, you mean Victor? Yeah, the guy. So, again, if you want to really manage emotional tensions, you have to exercise courtesy. You have to be overly courteous. And sometimes you really got to bite your tongue. Listen, I'm not saying any of this is easy. All right, so let's just be clear. I'm not saying any of this is easy. Sometimes I just want to, you know, punch somebody in the face at that point. I'm so angry with them, but I got to just sort of smile and keep it going. So I got to manage my emotions, keep them under control, and I got to make sure that other people's emotions are not going down those rabbit holes. Courtesy goes a long way. It just goes a long way at diffusing that situation. It really does. And it's a tool to just know. You know, this is where I use this example, you know, a partner handling a negotiation who's an associate. So rather than being like, I'm a partner, why is there only an associate here? The better thing to do, okay, would be to acknowledge his status, to acknowledge the associate status. I said, that's really impressive that you won that contracts award in law school. I'm really impressed by that. These are things that are simple to do, folks. This isn't rocket science. This is just simple preparation. Like I said from the very beginning, simple preparation when you're going in. You know, but people with negotiation, it's weird. They think that everybody thinks they're a great negotiator. I use my dad as an example all the time. You know, he thinks he's just a great negotiator. He always gets ripped off. Always gets ripped off. To him, it's the greatest deal in the world, and I don't have a heart anymore to tell him you got ripped off, Dad. But, you know, it's just the greatest. But there's no preparation. There's no excuse for it now. There's really no excuse for not being prepared when you go into it, for not knowing everything about that other person, for not knowing everything about what's going on. So it's really important that you do that. You got to be aware of status spillover, though. Okay, and the example I like to use, you know, are the Hollywood actors who feel that because they starred in a movie, they now know how to solve world hunger and all these other things going on in the world. Okay, status spillover is critical. Like, it's okay to say, you know, oh, this person is the best in class in what they do, and they really know what they're doing, and I'm going to pay them some deferential, status because of that. I get that, and you want to do that, but don't be ridiculous about it. Like, they may know that one thing really well, okay? But don't lose your confidence in the negotiation by thinking just because they excelled in one area, they now know everything that's going on in the entire universe about everything. And
Oprah.
Right. You know, it's you got to be aware of status spillover and just manage it. Remember, this is all about managing tension and tools to use it. So, last point that we'll talk about is, what if it all fails? Right? We've done our homework. You know, we've prepared. We built affiliation. We bought them a cup of coffee. We did our research. We talked about all the wonderful things that, you know, we could talk about with them. And they still are just a bunch of jackasses, right? They just still are just not going to buy into it, not going to try. They're just going to focus on positions. They don't want to talk about interests. You know, what do? How do we handle that? You know, there's a couple of tools that we can use. You know, one is to appreciate their concerns, and it's like, you know, no, I want $5. I want $5 for it. Well, I don't really think it's worth $5. I think it's worth $3. And here's, I don't care what you think. I want $5 for it. You know, it's. We've all been in that sort of circular type of conversation. A tool to work out of that is to say, I totally understand and appreciate that you want $5. And if I was you, I'd probably want $5 too. Okay. However, I'm not really sure it's worth $5. And here's my reasons why. Just a simple appreciation of what they're saying. A lot of times, so this is, you know, people selling their house. You know, I want $500,000 for the house. Well, it's not worth that. It's worth $350. Well, I'm not selling it for $350. I want $500. Well, you can want whatever you want, but you're not going to get it. Okay. So brokers have to deal with this all the time, right? Just all the time. People having unrealistic expectations about what their houses are worth. The very good brokers will appreciate the concerns and start working through that. Rather than just saying, this person's an idiot, I'm out of here, they're never going to get $500,000 and I don't want to deal with them, right? Which a lot of people do, but not very skilled negotiators. So appreciating people's concerns are very, very important to diffusing tensions and managing emotions. You know, taking a break. So, very important if you're in the middle of a negotiation and it just doesn't seem to be going anywhere, and I use this all the time. You know, I'm a pretty candid guy, and I'll just say, all right, this doesn't really seem to be going anywhere, so why don't we just take a break? Why don't we just take a break and see if we want to revisit this at some point. There's a lot of power, a lot of magic happens, you know, when you're butting heads, and you take a cool down period and you take a little bit of a break. A lot of magic can happen during that period. Why? Because during that cool down period, people are going to start thinking about their risk. People are going to start focusing during that cool down period on their risk. Right? They're not focused on it when they're butting heads. They're not focused on it when they're passionately fighting or they're emotional. That's the thing. When people are emotional, they're not focused on risk. Risk is irrelevant to them at that point. It's like when you're drunk. You don't care about risk, okay? But when they're sober and they take a break, then they start focusing on the risk. Shit, if I don't get this done, I'm going to have this problem, I'm going to have that problem, I'm going to have this problem. It really softens them up. And so the goal is, when you're negotiating with people, and you want to manage the emotions, are to find opportunities to get them to focus on their risk. And a good way to do that is by, you know, taking a break. Changing the players, you know, we do this all the time in our office, and it's a very effective way, you know, to keep things moving. And you know, you can use it all the time as well. You know, in fact, I do use it all the time, and I'll be like, look, right now you're dealing with me. If you gotta start dealing with my wife, you're gonna have a really big problem, okay? So you're better off just dealing with me. Even the threat of changing the players can really manage tensions and emotions in a negotiation. But it works even in professional settings, it really does. You know, it works because if I'm just not able, and we do it all the time strategically, you know, if I'm involved in a matter and Jeff's involved in a matter, Jeff will, you know, play good cop, I'll play bad cop, or vice versa. And we'll just keep changing the players to be trying to get people to move off of their incredibly difficult positions. And I think that that's a very, you know, very effective way to do it. And another great thing is changing the place. You know, so I mentioned that we're doing this lease negotiation, and we've been meeting at the other attorneys' offices, and you know, they're not respecting my autonomy because they're just making an assumption now that it's going to be at their office, but whatever, it's fine. But we're not making a lot of progress. There's a lot of talking, but not a lot is being said or done, and it's starting to get very frustrating. So now's the appropriate time to change the place, right? and to basically say, all right, we're gonna try this. We're gonna try this at our office now because we don't seem to be making a lot of progress at your office. And I guess we'll see kind of what happens. I think it'll work. I do think sometimes just a new perspective, just a new thing seems to work out, really well. So going back, you'll see going back to the beginning, how important this emotion, can really be. All of these tools that we talked about earlier, preparation, active listening, all of those tools tie in to how to manage the emotions as well. You can't get away. So if you were going to forget everything else about negotiations, and you're only going to do preparation and active listening, those are the most critical things for anybody to do when preparing for or getting ready to go into a negotiation. Because by preparing and by listening, you're going to have the information you need to manage all of those tensions. And that's really what it's about. So just think about it. When we talked about playing to win rather than playing not to lose, you have to have a very deep awareness of what your strategy is, of what's going on, okay? Why you're saying certain things, why you're doing certain things, and you have to be monitoring it at all times during a negotiation. You can wing it, but you're not going to really create a lot of value. And that's not what it's about, right? It's about a negotiation. You want to create as much value as you can while minimizing as much risk as you can.